We're going to talk a little bit about how to use flow to lead and govern agile organizations or organizations in general. We're going to look at some of the things that organizations are coming up against and some of the challenges that they're going to face, especially if they're doing a waterfall to agile transformation or any kind of transformation or digitalization effort. If your company is going quote unquote digital everywhere, then this still applies and you're going to face the same challenges. The leadership takeaway for this video on using flow to govern and lead agile organizations, this is just a real short video, but there's some additional videos that follow this. We're going to look briefly at the leadership challenges for governing agile organizations and then the three primary executive roles. These are key for making sure that your governance and or transformation and your leadership are working. We're going to look at vision and culture, communicating flow, and prioritization, and how to start to understand what your organizational velocity actually is. Here are a few of the challenges, and what's interesting about this is that this hasn't changed in the better part of almost a decade, because most of the companies are struggling desperately with command and control. No more micromanaging. Most companies are just having a lot of heartburn trying to let go. It's not in their DNA. It's not in who they are. And if you're a company that's making products that puts people's lives at risk, well, you might have to be making some sacrifices, trade-offs, and compromises in order to be able to mitigate the command and control in order to get the benefit that you're trying to achieve with Agile. If you talk to the purists, Agile is a bottom-up, self-organizing methodology where it's a primarily team-level methodology. It's even in the Scrum guide, when one of the earlier versions, it said Scrum is optimized for teams of 5 to 7 people. Or 7 people plus or minus 2, so like 5 to 9 people. Scrum.org has expanded that to 3 to 9 people, and somewhere in between is the truth. And the primary thing is that it's optimized for teams, not organizations. Okay. One of the Agile manifesto signers, he had famously been quoting that scaling is the last thing you should do, meaning that you shouldn't scale until you have all your teams doing Scrum or Agile or Kanban or XP properly. When the teams are doing that properly, then you can look at doing scaling. Not until then. Or you could also interpret it that scaling is the last thing you should ever do, meaning you should never do it. So it's a very bottom-up, team-level, optimized methodology. So what about the enterprise? Where do the managers, senior managers, executives, board of directors fit in? What are their new agile roles? Is it possible to drive agility top-down and bottom-up at the same time? And how do you do that? This slide is a repeat. You'll recognize it from the introduction section. And as I mentioned there, you're going to get a deeper understanding of how to use these in the Flow Certified Coach training that we do, and that includes the 4 hours of transformation video training. So for this, basically, it's vision and culture, communicating the flow at every level, and then prioritizing the work for the entire company, as well as understanding and knowing your organization's velocity. So however you're tracking the entire workload that you're doing, it really comes down to balancing supply and demand. How much demand is there for products and projects and programs to be completed, and what is our ability to deliver those and supply what the organization needs. So these are still the key responsibilities for the executives that are going to be governing Agile, and I consider these absolutely key for leadership. In this section, we looked at the leadership challenges for governing an Agile organization and the key executive roles. The application of this is take a moment to reflect on how much your organization is command and control in its leadership style. You need to ask yourself, why is that? What would have to change in order to create a more organic, bottom-up, self-organizing, self-governing organization? Need to ask yourself that. And then this is about also in terms of the when cultures collide slide in one of the earlier videos. And so you sort of have to start to piece the different parts together